because there seems to be a delay between when Streamlabs starts recording um, and when I start speaking. So there's been some times where I've made these streams and um, I'm talking in the middle of things when you first start the video. Anyway, welcome to a flawed man's take on the Bible. I am a flawed man. I am a nobody. I'm Stuart Davis. I'm a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. Not here to try to get you to join my congregation or donate to any special cause. I'm not a preacher or a biblical scholar. I'm just chronicling, I guess, the thoughts and opinions of what I consider an average Christian and giving that exposure to folks who are interested in learning more about Christianity, who may think that joining it may make them awkward or weird or something like that, or that they're joining a place where they might not fit in. No, Christianity is for everyone. It is something that is specifically designed for everybody, and one of the things that we need to do as Christians is be better about um, accepting our own flaws, and through that giving grace to other people and their flaws as well. So what I'm doing in the stream, if you're new to the channel, is I am covering the Bible, one piece at a time, not necessarily one chapter at a time, but I am going through it and giving my thoughts and reactions to it, because I do think that it's important to understand context behind the Bible, and with that said, that's important to do those things. And so what I've been doing is sharing this page on the Flawed Man Facebook page that I created, and also my personal page. And while Streamlabs will send it right on to Streamlabs will send it right to the Flawed Man page. On my personal page, it doesn't. So what I'm doing is sharing it to my page because just need more exposure. Need more people watching. But whether anybody watches or not, that's I'm just trying to get the message out there, and that's great. And I'm probably looking a little bit more clean cut than I have in the past, and that's one of the pitfalls of working remotely a lot, is that sometimes you just feel the need to get up and get a haircut when you need to, or touch up the shaving that you might need. And so I've got a haircut now, and and I've trimmed around the beard, so I don't look like I'm out in the wilderness like Moses or John the Baptist or somebody like that. Nothing against them. I just feel like I'm more presentable, probably. Anyways, so let's get right into it. So we are going to pull up Genesis, picking up chapter 15. So where we left off is basically Abram has saved Lot from captivity. He got basically kind of prisoner of war in there. He got taken as a captive as kind of spoils in the aftermath of a large battle between several different nations and kings, and he just got caught up in the middle of it. He doesn't seem to be fighting on any side, but again, taken captive. Abram comes in, brings his posse in with him. He takes him back. One of the kings wants to reward him for what he did, and that king happened to be from the kingdom of Sodom. And Abram basically said, thanks, but no thanks. I don't want anything that you're going to give me because of the evil that you're doing in the sight of the Lord. So after this, and he doesn't seem to do it at God's command. He just seems to do it on his own. And I'm going to pop it up right here. So we can read it. Abram seems to make this decision on his own. He is probably equally disgusted by what is going on in Sodom, which they don't get into much detail at this point. But whatever it is, it's enough that that God is very angry with them. And so, when the king of that country goes to reward Abram goes, "There's nothing you're going to offer me that is of interest to me, because everything that you're doing is basically disgusting to the Lord." So after he does this, we pick up with chapter 15. Lord's covenant with Abram. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. "Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward." But Abram said, "Sovereign Lord, what can you give me, since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus?" And Abram said, "You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir." Now, Abram's showing a little bit of doubt, which is kind of uncommon for him so far. What we have seen from Abram is he's made a few mistakes along the way, done some things, gotten a little fearful, but never really questioned God in any way. He's never really doubted God in any way. His faith has been very solid. But right now he's getting older, and he's telling the Lord, "Hey, you told me I was going to have these countless descendants, and yet I don't have any right now." So, I think that's thinking about that, he's, you can kind of understand. Faith is a difficult thing. Now, faith is much different when God is coming to you in visions, and he's interceding in your behalf, and he's doing all these other things. It's much realer. It's easier to trust when when everything is happening right in front of you. But at the same time, you got to remember, what God is promising Abram is incredible. I mean, it's quite a blessing. I mean, the important, not only that, you're becoming the keystone for everything else that's going to happen for the rest of human history in the eyes of God and the religion and the faith that He's setting up. So then the word of the Lord came to him. "This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir." He took him outside and said, "Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them." Then he said to him, "So shall your offspring be." Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. He also said to him, "I am the Lord, who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it." Pretty impressive. And not only that, it only takes God assuring Abram that he's going to get his just reward. He's going to give him his just reward to convince Abram that it's going to happen. And Abram says, "Well, if you say it's going to happen," that is, of all things, and there are some very faithful people throughout the Bible. Abram is one of the most incredible ones, because again, fantastic promises, and that we see a little bit of doubt here, but when he's reassured, he doesn't do what a lot of people do in the Bible, and that's kind of continually doubt. And this is a recurring theme. Not everybody's like that. There are some people who are very much like Abram in this sense of faith. But there's others who are also people of high respect and high regard that we hold in Christianity, who are consistently showing doubt. And it's not something to beat yourself up over. If you're experiencing doubt, it's just your mind wrestling with faith, or it's Satan trying to attack your faith. It's not something to beat yourself up over. What we see in someone with faith to the degree Abram has is something that is worthy of admiration, and not something it is something that we should strive for. But not being able to get there and having difficulty along the way, that's not something that you should be. That's not something that you should be beating yourself up over. You should use it as a goal. This is Abram. This is a guy who's done it. If he can do it, so can you. And maybe you can't. Maybe you have difficulty, and maybe you never achieve that level of faith. But if it's your goal, you will find yourself much more rewarded. So he said, I give this land to take possession of it. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. When the sun had set and the darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, To your descendants I give this land from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites, and any other ites that you could probably think of in between. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of ites. Anyways, so this is the covenant. This is another covenant that God is making with man, and he is being Abram is being rewarded for his great faith and just great loyalty in following God and doing what he's been told. We've seen him do some things that he hasn't been told to do, but he hasn't disobeyed God. He's only really seemed to question him twice. One was, hey, I haven't had a kid yet, and I'm supposed to have all these descendants. I haven't even had one descendant. And the other one was, how am I going to gain possession of all this land? So Abram believes God, but he doesn't necessarily understand how he's going to get the things that God has told him. But he believes him. He believes him. That's such a powerful thing. Like I said, Abram makes his mistakes, doesn't always make great decisions when it comes to his personal affairs, but when it comes to God, he listens. He listens, and he usually believes right out. Hagar and Ishmael. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, The Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her. Abram and Sarai, and eventually Abraham and Sarah, must have a very interesting marriage relationship, because this is the second time we are met with an instance, and you notice that both these times God aren't involved, where they do some things that we, at least today, by today's standards, would find very questionable. And both times there seems to be like these giant red flags waving, and they should be waving right in front of Abram's face. Sarah's saying, hey, I have this slave. I can't give you any kids, but Hagar can give you some kids. And then we'll have our family that way. And, Hagar is, apparently going to stay in this mix. And apparently everything's going to be okay, right? And there's going to be no drama whatsoever. Nothing bad could possibly come from this, right? Well, let's read and find out. Abram agreed to what Sarai said. Might have been your first mistake, man. So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar, and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abram, You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me. Abram's probably like, how is this my fault? You did this. But, again, Abram probably should have said from the get-go, this is not a good idea. But, what do I know, right? It's not possible that this would cause any type of any kind of discord. But see what we say here. And this ought to make this is a weird family dynamic, right? So he's got a second wife, which is acceptable, especially back in those days. It was acceptable. Crap. Polygamy was acceptable, and often was just a thing. But the interesting thing here is he has one wife who is servant to another wife. So this pecking order, ladies, I'm not trying to be disrespectful here or not, but y'all can be really catty sometimes, and I can't imagine that this is a good situation. And apparently it doesn't. And so when it doesn't, when Hagar starts to say, "Hey, look, I got the kids. I'm having the kids," Sarah goes to Abram, goes, "This is your fault. You did this. You didn't just give me permission to do this. You encouraged me to do it. It was your idea from the get-go, and now you have a problem with it, and now it's my problem." I love this response from Abram. "Your slave is in your hands," Abram said. "Do with her whatever you think best." Then Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. This could be Hagar. Hagar. It's not a really good sounding name. I don't like the sound of this name. Either way, she's fled from her. Abram took the responsibility, like, "Look, this is your problem. You created this, so washing my hands of this." And which doesn't really say much for wedding vows since they're married, because he's basically saying, "Hey, do whatever," instead of saying, "Hey, she's my wife. She's got and she's having my kid, so she deserves some respect or place in here." But no, Sarai mistreats her, and so Hagar left. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?" "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai," she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." The angel added, "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count." The angel of the Lord also said to her, "You are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. He will live in hostility towards all his brothers." She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her, "You are the God who sees me." For she said, "I have now seen the one who sees me." That is why the well was called Bir Lahai Roy. It is still there between Kadesh and Bered. I don't know if it's still there, but apparently when this was written, it was still there. I don't know if this is still a thing. But interesting thing. This is a very important but very fast part of the Bible that we're talking about, and it's not over yet. But right here, you shall name him Ishmael. This is important. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. He will live in hostility towards all his brothers. Ishmael is ostensibly the ancestor of Muhammad, who is the cornerstone of Islam, and one of the main struggles that we see in Islam, I'm not going to get delved too deep in it, is the amount of violence that we see within it in many regions, or in many regions where Islam is dominated. You see a lot of fighting, and not to say that Christianity doesn't have this problem as well, but it seems to be much more prevalent and much more emphasized in Islam, and this really comes home more. The story of Ishmael and how it plays out, foreshadowing and really prophesies. It's one of the easiest prophecies to point to in the Bible that's not even really made as a prophecy. It's just the God saying, "Hey, you're going to have a son. He's going to be a wild man. He's going to live in hostility, and he's going to have difficulty getting along with anybody." And he ends up being the precursor to Islam, which, again, its place in the world, There's a lot of conflict involved from within and from without regarding how they interact with other people, other cultures, and other religions. But, you know, Hagar, for her part, is very faithful. I don't see any real problem with her other than she gets a little. She's probably a little mean to Sarah at the beginning, but you know, Sarah's mean right back to her and actually casts her from her sight. But she's told what to do, and she doesn't. She doesn't. She does what God says, and she is very faithful here too. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. Good job, Abram. Here's the last chapter. And while Leviticus can be a very painful book to get through because of the rules and just the overall dryness of it, this might be one of the most painful, physically painful chapters of the Bible. The covenant of circumcision. We just know Abram's in his 80s at this point, and then we're going to see he's a little bit older. Chapter 17. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. Then I will make my covenant between me and you, and will greatly increase your numbers. Abram fell face down, and God said to him, As for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you very fruitful. I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you for the generations to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give as an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God. Pretty powerful, and reiterating things he has already said. It feels like he's building up to something very important, like, hey, I'm reiterating this because I'm about to ask you something very important for you, or something very difficult. Then God said to Abraham, As for you, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you for the generations to come. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you, the covenant you are to keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and you. For the generations to come, every male among you who is 8 days old must be circumcised, including those born in your household or bought with money from a foreigner, those who are not your offspring. Whether born in your household or bought with your money, they must be circumcised. My covenant in your flesh is to be an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. Look, nothing talks about commitment more than a man cutting into his privates. All right? This is a big request. It's God talking. And it would probably take God to make somebody do this. God also said to Abraham, As for Sarai, your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of people will come from her. Abraham fell face down. He laughed and said to himself, Will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? And Abraham said to God, If only Ishmael might live under your blessing. Then God said, Yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will surely bless him. I will make him fruitful and greatly increase his numbers. He will be the father of 12 rulers, and I will make him into a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you by this time next year. When he had finished speaking with Abraham, God went up from him. Okay? God said what he needed to say, gave him quite a command to do, and then leaves. Here it is again. All this riches, all this, importance, these many descendants, kings are going to come from your line. But I'm going to need you to cut the tip of your penis off. And not just you, a 99-year-old, 100-year-old man. I'm going to need you to do it to all the adults who want to be part of this covenant. So basically, this is your rite of passage, right? Here's your faith. On that very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael and all those born in his household or bought with his money, every male in his household, and circumcised them, as God told him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised, and his son Ishmael was 13. Abraham and his son Ishmael were both circumcised on that very day, and every male in Abraham's household, including those born in his household or bought from a foreigner, was circumcised with him. Whoo-wee! This is an uncomfortable thing, but you gotta, look, guys, you might be circumcised. You were probably, if you are, you probably circumcised when you were a baby, an infant, a newborn. Imagine doing this as a 100-year-old man. Not only that, with 100 years old, but you gotta, 100 years old, you usually don't have the still hand, that firm grasp or anything. So you're holding this knife and you're looking down and you're remembering what God told you. And Abraham's a faithful guy. And he's like, moment of truth. I just got to do this. And he did it. It doesn't really get into all the screaming that was going on, because it wasn't just him, a 99-year-old man, but it's also his 13-year-old son, who is probably howling. I would not want to be in that settlement the day that all of them circumcised themselves. I can imagine how anything got done in the weeks, possibly months afterwards. That has got to be a painful thing. But man, there's very few things, and there are very, very few things that will test your faith more than doing that to yourself as a grown man who can experience that and doing it to yourself. It looks like, or it sounds like at least, they were doing it to themselves. I don't know. I don't know what I would rather have. If I would rather do it myself or have somebody else do it for me. Especially with no anesthetic, no local, no numbing agent. It's just, I don't know how that whole process works. Nothing about it seems acceptable. But God asked. So it's not that it has to be acceptable. It just has to be done, period. So, on that note, I will leave you with that. We will get to more of this tomorrow night. And take from it what you will. Again, like I said, Abraham, if nothing else, is one of the most faithful people in Christian history. Because how many people are going to do this? And not only look, there are accounts, and it does happen sometimes, where men will convert and circumcise themselves. I don't know if they actually do it themselves, but, have the procedure done. But you're doing something and you're following in a line. Other people are doing it. It's well established. This is the first time, and God is being very simple. Look, I think God understands this, which is why God makes such a great deal about this, coming in and be like, hey, I am God. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. I will make my covenant between me and you and greatly increase your numbers. We're talking about kings. We're talking about nations. We're talking about all kinds of important things. Things that we realize, we now can look back and see how much God realized that promise for him. So he does this, and then he says, it's going to take some I'm going to get a pound of flesh, so to speak, from you. So, good times for us because we have it done as kids. bad times for Abraham, but he's doing it in the name of the Lord, which actually makes it good, because when you're faithful to the Lord, even though it might be painful or confusing, you're doing things. You're pleasing Him. Happy God is a good God. It's like happy wife, happy life. If God's happy with you, you've got nothing to fear. So, with that said, I hope you all have a great evening. I hope you're getting all along with this. I'm seeing some viewers pop in and pop out. If you come in and you view this stream, leave a comment, enter the chat. I'm doing this play-by-play of the Bible thing, but I really want more. I really want interaction from the viewers. I want to hear what you say. So like, subscribe, leave comments, share it. Leave a comment on Facebook. Do any of those things. I want to hear it. I want to really interact with you because I want to hear what your story is. Everybody's got, lots of people have got great takes and interpretations or takeaways from Bible, even when it's just an account like this. One of the great things. This is always one of the funniest things is getting a small group of men together talking, and this part pops up. We are incredibly immature people, and I am not apologizing for that one bit, and I never will.